This is Southern Fried Sports with BamaOnline senior analyst Travis Reier on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Make it through this year, I think I'm gonna put this bottle down. I guess as time goes on, I'll grow to miss it less than I will now. And I think I'm gonna tell her that I'm gonna go away for a while, till I can get this demon out.
It is 11 a.m. on a Friday morning. Time once again for Southern Fried Sports on your home for University of Alabama Athletics. Tide 100.9 FM. Travis Reier, senior analyst for BamaOnline.com, with you each and every weekday morning from 11 a.m. until noon. We are at the Tony Soprano table in the Indian Hill section of Tuscaloosa, just outside the front door of Peterbrook Chocolatier at 1530 McFarland Boulevard North, where right in front of me, well, actually now just to my immediate right, there is a platter of free chocolate-dipped strawberries for those who would like to come by and partake. Kind of get your taste buds a little wet for Valentine's Day coming up. And these are some good-looking strawberries. Got a nice assortment here. We've got whether you're a milk chocolate fan, a white chocolate fan, the personal favorite, the dark chocolate. The chocolate lady's got us hooked up. Looks to be about a baker's dozen of those strawberries I'm looking at right now. So about 12, 13 of the berries waiting for you, free. Come on by and have a sample while you're out and about on this Friday morning. Of course, you can turn it into a lunch situation for yourself too, because we're right next door to Southern Ale House. Might not be a bad combination on this Friday. A lot to get to on the program, and helping me to do that, the executive producer of the show, Josh Smith, who together we combine to form the 60-minute man. Woo! Of Sports Talk Radio. What about it, Josh? I wish you were here, my man. Wish you were here. Which way would you go? Would you go white chocolate, dark chocolate, or milk chocolate, Josh?
I mean, if I can't do all of the above, probably milk chocolate.
I think we could make an exception for Josh, for all the hard work he puts in and as much as he puts up with just in this hour alone. I think we could do the trifecta for Josh. I think we could do the milk, dark, and white.
Slice Josh, it up a little bit, get a little piece of each, after. But here's the real problem. Do you go to Southern Ale House first, or do you get dessert first? Because I'm one of those desserts first guys.
Yeah, if you just do one of the strawberries, you'd probably be okay. You'd be more than okay. You could just hit one of these strawberries and then just amble right inside the doors there to Southern Ale and maybe get you that Yardbird chicken sandwich. You'd be fine either way. Either order will work. There's no doubt about that. A lot to get to on the program. I hope I sound okay, because it was, in fact, a late night with the Rainbow Wahine. We had that 11 o'clock Central. Yes. Played a little extra today, Josh. Yes. Played a little extra. We had that 11 o'clock tip-off last night at the Stan Sheriff Center in Honolulu. But we took care of the Anteaters of UC Irvine last night, 94-70. 94 points for our Rainbow Wahine last night. 14 three-pointers. We had 5 players in double figures. It's a little bit of a contrast to some of the women's hoops in the Southeastern Conference last night. Oof. How about South Carolina and Ole Miss last night over in Oxford? 32-2, your halftime score between the number 1 ranked team in the country, Dawn Staley's Gamecocks of South Carolina, and an Ole Miss program that is very much in rebuild mode. I think Ole Miss will actually get that thing turned around. I like the second-year coach that Ole Miss has in Yo McPhee McEwen. But roster-wise right now, Coach Yo Coach Yo of the Ole Miss women's team, she doesn't exactly have Coach O of the LSU football team sort of roster right now. Here in Tuscaloosa, we took Tay over to Coleman Coliseum last night. You had Alabama women's basketball taking on 25th ranked Arkansas. That was a 33-11 game at the half with the Razorbacks in front. So scoring in the first half of games last night on the women's side, difficult on the hardwoods. But, still a good time. Like I've said before, that's what Tatum likes to do. She likes to go to those women's basketball games, so that's what we do. That's what we do. Whether it's Shelton State and that dominant program that Madonna Thompson has down there off Highway 69. Joe Eatman on the men's side does a great job at Shelton State as well. We've got some good basketball in this town now. We've got our Northridge Jaguar boys team right now ranked in the top 10 of, I believe it's the Class 6A ranking. So we've got good basketball in this town, and we're going to have basketball tomorrow evening when the men's version of Alabama, Arkansas unfolds there at Coleman Coliseum. Of course, we know both teams coming off losses. In fact, Arkansas riding a 3-game losing streak in SEC play right now over at Coleman Coliseum. Nate Oates, head coach of the Crimson Tide, is addressing the media. So we'll update you as we can throughout the show. We typically have Charlie Potter, my cohort there at BamaOnline.com, with us on Fridays. Charlie will not be on the show today because he is taking care of his beat duties as we speak over there with that Nate Oates presser. Interested in the status of Beetle Bolden, who missed that LSU game on Wednesday night due to illness, and just how this team rebounds in general, literally rebounds, because the last couple of games, rebounding's been a real problem. Whether it was getting shellacked on the boards to the tune of 49-31 in the loss to LSU on Wednesday night, even in the win over K-State last Saturday. You give up 22 offensive boards while collecting just 3 of your own. The good news for Alabama in that respect tomorrow is that Arkansas currently ranks 13th in the SEC in rebounding at 33 boards per game. Now, Arkansas sort of like Alabama in that it is guard wing dependent. When you look at Mason Jones for Arkansas, who leads the SEC in scoring at 19.2 points per game. He also leads the Hogs in rebounding and assists, I believe steals too. And then you also have Isaiah Joe, 5th in the league in scoring at 16.8 points per game, and he's shooting at right around a 35% clip from 3. Arkansas not nearly as efficient throughout this season from beyond the arc. And then for Alabama, Kyra Lewis Jr. comes into the game, 6th in the SEC in scoring at 16.7 per. John Petty, after coming off the bench, be interesting to see how that plays out here in the wake of the performance at LSU. John Petty, 9th in the SEC in scoring at 15.8. Both these teams trying to scratch and claw and maintain contact with a potential NCAA tournament at-large bid. You look at the net rankings this morning that the NC2A puts out. You've got Arkansas sitting there at 39, Alabama at 40. Joe Lunardi of ESPN's Bracketology, in his most recent edition of Bracketology, had Arkansas in the tournament. He had Alabama as a first 4 out. Now, that was before, I believe, both incurred those losses on Wednesday night. And the SEC right now looks to be a 5-bid league with some ors in that 5th spot instead of some ands. In other words, the ceiling for the SEC right now looks to be 5 teams. I think a lot of that's going to sort itself out, as we've talked about this week, over the next few days, the next few weeks. A lot of these teams are going to play each other. Tennessee kind of trying to maintain some contact with that mix. But Tennessee and South Carolina right now, when you look at the net rankings for both those teams, they're 65-ish and below. When you look at that tier below right now, LSU, Kentucky, and Auburn. Kentucky and Auburn in that primetime matchup tomorrow night, by the way, down on the Plains. Should be a good one. When you look at that tier beyond LSU, Kentucky, and Auburn, you're really looking at, right now anyway, Arkansas, Florida, Mississippi State, and Alabama. 2 of those teams probably of the 4 for 2 spots when you look at those 4th and potential 5th slots and at-large bids for the NCAA tournament. In fact, the net rankings for those aforementioned teams this morning went like this. Arkansas at 39, Alabama at 40, Florida at 41, Mississippi State at 42. So all 4 teams in order right now in the net rankings. 205-342-9904. That is the Peterbrook Chocolatier studio line if you'd like to jump on board with us on a Friday morning from Peterbrook Chocolatier right here in the Indian Hills section of Tuscaloosa. I got that platter of free samples of chocolate dip strawberries I'm looking at right now. Might just have to go to you, Josh, unexpectedly here in a minute if I jump into these strawberries. But we'd love to hear from you on this edition of Southern Fried Sports. Coming up in the next segment, we're going to check in with another of my cohorts there at BamaOnline.com, that being, of course, Hank South, recruiting analyst, and still some loose ends to tie up. You probably saw it on your social media last night. Nick Saban, new defensive line coach Freddie Roach, and defensive coordinator inside linebackers coach Pete Golding were over in Mississippi last night visiting with McKinley Jackson, the 4-star defensive tackle, in all likelihood, the highest rated remaining player still on Alabama's board for the 2020 recruiting cycle. Yeah. Did you see them? It looked like they were at maybe a catfish joint or something over there in Mississippi. It was one of those restaurants that we all know and love here in the South. It didn't look like, based on the table set up there at that restaurant last night, that you could get some, say, kale, The place where they were breaking bread last night with McKinley Jackson, if you went in there and asked for, maybe some kale, a kale salad, I think they might look at you a little funny. I don't know if there's anything green in that restaurant where they were eating last night. I don't think you can get broccoli in there.
And I don't think any of them just had a single plate. I think they had a few, if not 2 or 3 in front of them.
I think a lot of the stuff was fried, is the sense I got. And probably, Josh, you think a lot of hot sauce involved at those tables, that restaurant over in Mississippi?
Might have had a few bottles over there.
Yeah. Crystal hot sauce, A little Crystal. Maybe you can get some Tabasco if you're Yankee. And some pepper sauce. The grand folks, those Walker County grand folks of mine, they love those collard greens, but they loved them with that pepper sauce. Not hot sauce, pepper sauce they'd put on those collard greens. Those greens in general, they loved it. So you've got that situation still cooking, so to speak, with McKinley Jackson, who is expected to visit officially this weekend. Going to go from that in-home visit, in-restaurant visit with Nick Saban, Freddie Roach, and Pete Golding last night to Jimbo Fisher. Going to go down to College Station for an official visit this weekend. If you're Alabama, you still have Alfred Collins out there, a defensive end prospect from the state of Texas. That might be more of an in-state deal based on what I've heard from Hank South, Tim Watts, and our recruiting staff there at BamaOnline.com. And how all this sort of shakes out with the big guys up front will probably have an impact on Enos Rakestraw, the cornerback prospect from the state of Texas, in terms of how the numbers sort of fall. And as you know already, Carl Tucker, the grad transfer from North Carolina coming in, he made that decision public on Wednesday evening. We talked about Carl Tucker in depth, but I'm going to get Hank's thoughts on Tucker's addition coming up here in a little bit. If you haven't already, go to BamaOnline.com. And Hank went pretty in depth with Carl Tucker following his commitment to UA. 6th-year senior Carl Tucker going to be. Going to add some, it's going to be kind of the grandpa in this era of 3-and-outs, right? So many 3-and-outs at places like Alabama, LSU. You add a 6th-year guy, you got to be 23, 24 years old. Not a bad thing. Not a bad thing, especially if he can give you some thump at the point of attack, at the line of scrimmage. in that run game and joining Miller Forrestall at the tight end position. Going to step aside for a quick break. As promised, when we come back, we will talk with Hank South. We got Pops, by the way, coming up later in the program. I screened Pops earlier, Josh, and every time I talk to him, there's trouble. There's always some issue. There's always something that he's trying to rectify due to himself. Yeah, he's a problem, Pops. So we'll get with him on his latest adventures coming up a little bit later in the show. Josh, he will be on the hard line today. He'll be on that hard line there on the west side of Jacksonville, awaiting that egg salad sandwich for lunch from Nana. That's what he'll be doing when we call him this afternoon. Hank South, BamaOnline.com. Coming up next when Southern Fried Sports returns on Tide 100.9 FM right after this. Friday edition of Southern Fried Sports right here on Tide 100.9 FM. Travis Reier, senior analyst for BamaOnline.com with you each and every weekday morning from 11 a.m. until noon. Show, as always, brought to you by Peterbrook Chocolatier, where we are posted up right now, as a matter of fact, just outside the front door of Peterbrook Chocolatier at the Tony Soprano table. Got some leaden skies here in Tuscaloosa today. We've got comfortable temperatures. It's spitting a little bit of rain. Nothing too crazy yet, but we're holding up, man. We're holding it down. It is also a Super Bowl weekend, so if you're looking to accentuate that Super Bowl spread of yours, a couple places where I'm sitting right now can help you with that. Southern Ale House and Peterbrook Chocolatier. Man, I got to start thinking about that Super Bowl spread for Sunday. That's more important than the game, right? We've been blessed here in Tuscaloosa of late, man. We've had a couple of establishments that have opened here probably in the last year. And if you want smoked wings, Southern Ale House can certainly take care of that for you. But in terms of the traditional fried type wings, a couple of new places in Tuscaloosa, if you haven't heard about them, I think do a great job. Unsolicited recommendation coming at you. With Voodoo Wings down on the Strip, those are outstanding wings. And Raised on Country, a new restaurant downtown Tuscaloosa on University Boulevard. They do all the sort of exotic fare like camel and bison and kangaroo even. But I'm just telling you, the chicken wings, the traditional type chicken wings there are very, very good. Let's head to the Peterbrook Chocolatier studio line right now and check in with our good pal, Hank South of BamaOnline.com. Pretty busy guy right now, I'd say. Not only is Alabama looking to put a wrap on this 2020 recruiting class, but hosting a huge Junior Day event on Saturday as well. Between all that, other than all that, Hank, you don't really have a whole lot going on, do you?
No, I'm just wondering what kangaroo wings taste like.
Yeah, I don't know if they're wings. That would be really different. But it's there's a
not
place
wings.
here.
Oh yeah, you know what I mean.
There's
kangaroo,
well, I mean, there's buffalo wings, right? So why can't there be kangaroo wings? If we get right down to it. But yeah, we're getting out there a little bit. We're getting a little gamey in Tuscaloosa, Alabama these days. Hey, Hank, speaking of gamey, the Alabama Crimson Tide added to its tight end game here in the last couple of days. Carl Tucker, a grad transfer from North Carolina. I know you had an in-depth interview with Carl on BamaOnline.com. What did you sort of take away from that conversation and really the kind of the lead up to this commitment from the veteran tight end?
Yeah, he was a guy that, we kind of got word that he was in communication with Alabama a few weeks back, talking to Jeff Banks a little bit, was extended an offer, set up an unofficial visit to Tuscaloosa last weekend, and spent the entire weekend on campus. And, talking to him on Sunday, it was pretty clear Alabama had the edge for him coming off the visit. He has 1 year of eligibility left. He wants to go to a place where he has a chance to contribute in a place, obviously, he has a chance to, win on the field with the team, and that certainly was Alabama in his mind. And, he waited a couple days to come off the visit, went home, thought about it, called Jeff Banks on Tuesday, said he wanted to commit, got on the phone with Saban on Wednesday, told him the news, and then announced his decision on Wednesday night. So, I think what really sold him is like I said, he has 1 year left of eligibility. He was granted a 6th year of eligibility from the NCAA this offseason. That he talked about how he thinks he kind of, compares a little bit to Irv Smith, and he likes the way, obviously, how they used him in his production in his final year with Alabama. And I think he saw a real opportunity for himself to come in and contribute. He said Mac Jones was a big part of his decision. He spent a lot of the weekend talking with Mac Jones, talking about kind of how they can use him in the offense and the advantages of coming in and playing in that system. So I think just overall the whole weekend, the visit, talking with Saban, talking with Mac Jones, the Irv Smith comparison, I think that all kind of just sold Carl Tucker on Alabama, and he's ready to go this summer.
That is an interesting comparison. And when you look at the measurables with Carl Tucker, I believe he's 6'2"-ish, 250-ish. That's kind of in line with Irv Smith Jr. from a couple of years ago. When you look at this finish in general, this potential finish, obviously, as you and Tim Watts have reported so extensively on the recruitment of McKinley Jackson, the big defensive lineman from over in Lucedale, Mississippi. Where did last night rank in terms of importance of trying to finish this thing off when you had Nick Saban and Pete Golding and Freddie Roach as the new defensive line coach go in home, and it looked like in restaurant with McKinley Jackson last night?
Yeah, I think it was a really important visit, obviously ahead of his Texas A&M official visit this weekend, which is thought to be the primary competition for McKinley Jackson ahead of next Wednesday when he announces his decision. But, yeah, I was told the visit went really well. I talked with his coach a little bit this morning about it. Apparently, McKinley's mom actually works at the restaurant they ate at, and he was saying that, Nick Saban couldn't even really eat his food because everyone was coming up and taking pictures and around the table. So, I think the visit went really well. Obviously, we've talked about it before. I think the addition of Freddie Roach is significant for Alabama in their chances of landing McKinley Jackson. I think they were already in a good position prior to adding Freddie Roach to the staff, but obviously this really helps with the relationship he has with him sending back to Ole Miss. And then, just to get this last in-home visit before he heads off to College Station this weekend, because Bama won't be able to see him again. The dead period starts on Monday. He'll be I imagine he'll be in College Station until, later on Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening. So the only contact they'll have with him after yesterday was we'll be on the phone or on FaceTime or all that. So important visit. I think Bama, I think it went well. They got him on campus for that unofficial visit earlier this month, which was big. And of course they've gotten him on campus twice this fall for a couple games, including an official visit. So I think, that they've, Bama's done a really good job in this recruitment, and, we'll see what happens on Wednesday.
You've had McKinley Jackson crystal balled to Alabama for some time now, correct?
Yeah, I did it. I threw one in last March. They've been recruiting him, about 2 years now, if not longer. He's been a big target of theirs for so long. He's taken so many visits to Tuscaloosa. He has a really strong relationship with the staff. I think Bama's always just been really highly thought of, and as has A&M, and as has these other schools he's been considering in his top 5. But it's always kind of come back to Alabama. He's always been high on them. He's always taken visits. He has a close relationship with many of the staff members, and now especially Freddie Roach. So it's always been a little, I've always had confidence in Alabama's chances, certainly not discounting Texas A&M with the relationships he has there too. But, I think it's a close race coming into next Wednesday.
So what really is the connection with Texas A&M? Because Jackson was earlier an LSU commitment. He's from Mississippi. Is there obviously A&M can offer a ton in terms of facilities and is riding a bit of a hot streak itself from the recruiting perspective. But is there a certain particular angle or avenue with A&M that Jackson likes that you're aware of? What makes him such a viable contender to Alabama in this thing?
Yeah, I'm not sure as far as relationships. I know that I know he was close to Jimbo Fisher, I believe dating back to Florida State, and so I think that may have been what really sparked the original interest in Alabama or in Texas A&M. I'm sorry, and obviously Terry Price, the defensive line coach there as well. I know he's had some success in recruiting some top defensive linemen, including Bobby Brown in a couple cycles ago, former Alabama commit. So I think that's kind of the connection there, especially with Jimbo, because Florida State was one of his top schools earlier on in his recruitment. He was committed to LSU, obviously, but I think that's kind of the main connection there as far as McKinley Jackson goes.
Yeah, I think this recruitment might be giving some Alabama fans, Hank, a Bobby Brown flashback when you start talking about A&M here late, right?
A little bit, although Bobby, I don't know, that felt like a different recruitment. Obviously he was committed to Bama, but that was a wild ride through January, and even the early signing period when he flipped to Bama and then didn't sign it and all that. So a little bit more. I felt like that was a little bit more dramatic leading up to National Signing Day than McKinley Jackson is kind of carrying through this process.
So let's talk about Hal Jackson's decision, and that will be Wednesday morning, I believe you reported, 9:30 in the morning on Wednesday at his high school. Later that day, you're going to have Alfred Collins, a defensive end prospect that Alabama is in on from the state of Texas. I believe you've reported Texas and Oklahoma. Tim Watt's also reporting that. They're primary players in that recruitment. How does all this sort of play into a potential spot for Enos Rakestraw, the cornerback prospect from Texas, or does it at all? And just kind of the numbers and how they might work out here late, because it's tight, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the numbers crunch is still kind of on right now, and I'm not sure final decisions have really been made. Obviously McKinley Jackson's a priority target. Alfred Collins has been a priority target. If you've been following the reporting kind of as of late, it's more, I think we're leaning more towards Texas with Alfred Collins as far as where that recruitment may wind up, which has kind of been the thought throughout the whole process with living just outside of Austin and obviously the family ties to the Texas program. But as far as it goes with Enos Rakestraw, I think there's guys that Bama has committed currently, like Javon Baker, like Jameel Burroughs, guys that are still kind of working on the academic side of things. We still have we're still watching Jason Jones, what happens with that, although I'm not sure that Jason Jones' situation is really affecting final numbers as it is, just with his situation and kind of where things stand in his recruitment in terms of Alabama. But I think kind of, as we kind of enter next week, I feel we'll have kind of a better idea of where the numbers stand. I think looking at it now, it's one, maybe two spots left, so it is very tight. Obviously, you can only sign so many guys in one class, and there's only so many spots left. So I think it's to be determined kind of with Enos Rakestraw. I think Bama would like to add him to the class. They certainly think highly of him. They've gone out to visit him. They had him on the official visit last weekend, but it's just going to kind of come down to whether or not they're able to, and I don't think that's been decided yet.
Yeah, some good news for this Alabama class earlier in the week, too. You had the latest reveal for the top 247 rankings from 247sports.com. And, man, just when you think maybe Bryce Young is maxed out the accolades coming out of his senior year of football there at Mater Dei High School in Santa Ana, California, he adds to that list. And I think maybe even more notable were the large jumps that a couple of the defensive members in this 2020 class made from the Alabama perspective, Hank.
Yeah, no question. Coming off the All-American Bowl and coming off his senior season, I think it was a no-brainer that Willie Anderson was going to make a big jump. It was just kind of a question of how big of a jump. Certainly he was going to be in the 5-star range, but he went all the way up. For our rankings, the 24/7 Sports rankings, he went up to number 5 in the nation, which I think he's completely deserving of. I actually, we have a feature on 24/7 Sports where we can each do our own 5 stars, and I actually have Bryce number 1, Willie Anderson number 2. Just after seeing him in person, watching his senior tape, he's just a tear coming off the edge. And I think
you were in San Antonio. You were in San Antonio with him too, right? I mean, you saw him. We're talking about you were right there.
He was
against quality competition.
Top offensive lineman, and he wasn't having any trouble with them. I don't think I saw him lose one rep. But then you couple that with his senior tape, measuring in at the All-American Bowl. He's 6'2.5", 230 pounds, has longer arms than most of the linemen there. So just, one of these guys that I think is going to have a really successful career at Alabama. He made a big jump. Tim Smith made a big jump. He had a big senior season, and then which boosted him. I think that we had him in the 80s as far as overall in the top 247. But after a review of all his accomplishments this year, he moved up to number 28 in the country and earned a 5th star as well. So those are kind of the biggest notable jumps. Obviously, Bryce number 1, that's a big jump, but he was already at number 3, so not a massive jump in the standings compared to guys like Tim Smith and Will Anderson.
Never too early, Hank, to look ahead to 2021, right? And even beyond, as Alabama, when you start talking about future classes, expected to have some very important prospects, some VIPs, I guess you could say, on campus here in the next 24 to 48 hours. Give us a guy or two that sort of headlines that group as we look ahead to future years.
Yeah, I think you look at the 2 5-stars that are expected, and Tommy Brockermeyer, the offensive tackle from Fort Worth. He's the number 1 offensive tackle in the country, number 3 overall player in the 24/7 Sports Composite. This is his 2nd trip back, or maybe 3rd. He's been before. He was certainly on campus last summer. I think I'm not sure if he visited last spring, but this is his 2nd or 3rd trip back to Tuscaloosa, coming along with his twin brother, James Brockermeyer, who's a 4-star center in the 2021 class. And I think those two guys are ones to watch, certainly, as Bama continues on recruiting them. James has not earned an offer yet. I think, we might see one this weekend. I'd be surprised if we didn't see one this weekend, honestly. I think that's a big deal for his recruitment and Bama's pursuit of those two. Obviously, Tommy Brockermeyer's dad was an All-American at Texas and an All-American offensive lineman, so there's some strong ties to that program, but they're certainly looking beyond the state of Texas at colleges, and Bama is probably right there with them. Another big name is JaQuincy McKinstry, 5-star cornerback from Pinson Valley High School in Alabama. He's been to Bama countless times throughout his recruitment, but this will be his first visit in 2020, and this is going to be one of those recruitments that's going to be kind of I think a crazy one to watch, because you factor in that it's not only football he's being recruited in, he's a basketball recruit as well, and he's getting a lot of SEC and ACC interest on the basketball court. So that's going to be a big factor potentially in his final decision. Bama hasn't offered him in basketball yet. Do we see that happen this spring? I think it's possible. So I think those are the 2 biggest headliners in terms of rankings, but the full list is over at BamaOnline.com, and there's plenty of guys to watch in terms of who Bama's going to really target this 2021 cycle.
Absolutely. As Alabama wraps up this 2020 class, and as you start to get yourself emotionally invested in the 2021s, no better place to do that than BamaOnline.com. Hank South, Tim Watts, our recruiting staff there, second to none in the industry. So do it today. BamaOnline.com. Post up there at the round table, the premium message board at BOL. Trust me, you'll be smarter. You'll even look better if you do that. Hey, Hank, we appreciate it as always. Know you're very busy. Look forward to catching up with you again real soon. Thanks, Hank.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Travis. Hank
South, recruiting analyst for BamaOnline.com. If you haven't already, give Hank a follow on the Twitter at HankSouth247. Going to step aside for a quick break. When we come back, more of Southern Fried Sports from the Tony Soprano table in the Indian Hills section of Tuscaloosa, just outside Peterbrook Chocolatier. More of the show right after this. Is that some TGIF soundtrack right there or what? Huh? Harry Wayne Casey, better known as KC of KC and the Sunshine Band, born on this day in 1951. We had Phil Collins yesterday. He was a 51er. So Harry Wayne Casey kind of sounds like a serial killer, doesn't it? KC of KC and the Sunshine Band turned 68 years old today. It is Southern Fried Sports on a Friday from the Indian Hill section of Tuscaloosa, the Tony Soprano table here just outside Peterbrook Chocolatier. Swing on by. We've got these free samples of hand-dipped chocolate strawberries ready to go. Milk chocolate, dark chocolate, white chocolate. I'm looking at them right now. Yeah. I'm going to jump right into those here in just a minute. Hey, 205-342-9904. That's the number to call if you'd like to jump on board with us here as we get ready for Pops coming up in just a little bit. Still awaiting some word from Nate Oates' media availability that is ongoing over at Coleman Coliseum in advance of the Crimson Tide men's basketball team's matchup with the Arkansas Razorbacks tomorrow evening. Those 5 o'clock tips on Saturday evenings are pretty good, aren't they? I mean, if you live in Birmingham, you live in Huntsville, you know, even if you're a hardcore from the Gulf Coast, you can get up here and back for that 5 o'clock tip. That's not a bad time. That's a pretty good tip-off time, if I had to say myself. 12-8, Alabama, 4-3 in the league, taking on Arkansas at 15-5, 3-4 in the league are the Razorbacks. A couple of first-year coaches making some waves in the Southeastern Conference when you talk about Nate Oates of Alabama. Eric Musselman, former NBA head coach, and Eric Musselman. Had the Razorbacks looking really good there for a little bit, but as we told you earlier in the show, Arkansas losers of 3 straight in the SEC, so a sense of desperation from the Hogs. Tomorrow evening, you would think, here in Tuscaloosa. You're going to have Kevin Fitzgerald play-by-play on that SEC Network broadcast tomorrow night. Dane Bradshaw, the former Tennessee Vol, going to provide the color on that telecast. So that's your setup in terms of broadcast info for Alabama, Arkansas tomorrow evening. You also have the again, we're kind of wondering about Beetle Bolden because that situation didn't sound good. GI issue, according to Nate Oates. John Petty, does he return to the starting lineup? Nate Oates, yesterday in his appearance on the SEC Coaches Teleconference, reiterated hasn't been entirely thrilled with the practice habits of his team. And you got to think he's looking towards his veteran leadership to step forward in that regard. So we'll see how that goes for John Petty tomorrow night as well. And a lot of good SEC basketball once again tomorrow. You're going to have that sort of primetime marquee matchup between Kentucky and Auburn. Kentucky's done some pretty impressive stuff on the road here of late. Went into Arkansas and got a road win. Of course, last weekend went into Lubbock in that Big 12 SEC Challenge and got a road win over a very tough Texas Tech team coached by Chris Beard. So some good hoops tomorrow night. You're going to have the pro golf on the cable. You have the pro golf on the cable right now, as a matter of fact, and some good stuff from some former Alabama players yesterday. Bud Cauley with a 6 under 65. Unfortunately for Bud, he is +2 today through 12 holes in his second round. Justin Thomas with an opening round 68 yesterday at the Waste Management Phoenix Open out there in Scottsdale. Trey Mullinex, 1 under 70 yesterday. And he is even par so far today through 6 holes. And you've got Tuscaloosa native and former Auburn standout Patton Kazire with a 1 under 70 yesterday. And he'll tee off a little bit later on, around 12:55 Central Time, to get his second round going. Robbie Shelton, the former Alabama standout, with a 2 over 73 yesterday in his opening round. He's putting it in the ground, as they say, on number 10 to get his second round going as we speak. Going to step aside when we come back. Pops on a Friday on Southern Fried Sports. Tide 100.9 FM right after this.
I'm your boogie man, that's what I am. I'm here to do.
You hear this one, and it's hard not to think about sort of a mid-70s Pops, you know? Little KC and the Sunshine Band. Pops is in that polyester suit, maybe with those zipper boots that had a little lift in the heel, perhaps, for Pops. Yeah, that's what you kind of envision. He had those flybacks going with that trademark mustache. Kind of a Burt Reynolds look, I'd say, for Pops. Back around 74 or so. And with that, we bring him on right now. Pops on a Friday. What about a little KC and the Sunshine Band, Pops? Does that stir any memories for you?
Yes, it do. Yes, it do. Back in the day, them big old collared shirts,
Yeah, pastels. You had floral shirts,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, buddy. What you talking
And that was
about?
back
Those
when,
John
chest
Travolta.
hair. Yeah, chest hair was pretty fashionable back then. You'd kind of get that chest hair, that hair shirt of yours. It was more fashionable than it is now, Pops.
Top buttons had to be unbuttoned,
Yeah.
Shoot,
Yeah.
What got me, though, everybody wanted to wear them gold chains and stuff. I never wore anything like that.
You weren't a gold chain guy? No?
Yeah.
Did you have the leather boots, Pops?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
With-
But I had a
zipped up?
zipper on the inside of mine.
You had a what?
A zipper.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just zip them up. I like those kind. I didn't have to struggle with them,
Did you have a heel on that boot? Maybe lift you up a little bit, Pops.
Well,
Make you a little taller?
You had to have a little height at it,
I can just envision you and that ne'er-do-well softball team, that fast-pitch softball team, and you and the boys on the road, around the southeast with that KC and the Sunshine Band.
It didn't get no better than that. It didn't get no better.
And speaking of sort of bachelorhood-like behavior, I'm told that for reasons other than your poor effort when it came to the birthday gift with Nana, you're still in trouble there because you and that crew of yours, you like to go to too many ball games, Pops. You guys go to too many ball games, I'm told.
Yeah, she laid the law down on me. She's tired of being at home by herself at night.
Yeah.
And I told her, I said, I was just a couple nights, that's all. But yeah, I'm in hot water, and I guess I need to get her another bag of Skittles or something,
Skittle. That's where all this stems from, Pops. You can look. I can't believe I'm having to advise my father on his marriage, but Pops, you can do things like go to the ball games with the boys if you do something a little better than the Skittles. That's the root of the problem. If you would, if you would do something a little better than a bag of Skittles for the birthday. But that's where your problem all comes from. I mean, you can't. I mean, just go to you got Peterbrook there in Jacksonville. That's all you got to do.
Well, what kills me is I just took her to Red Lobster Thursday night. I mean, what in the world? And there she is.
All you can eat shrimp. Did you all you can eat shrimp them, Pops?
No, we had the coconut shrimp and lobster.
Ooh.
Yeah, those.
Now let me ask you this: you live on the Atlantic coast. You live on the Atlantic coast of Florida, and you're going to freaking Red Lobster, Pops. I mean, we have to do that here.
It wasn't my idea. It was the boys said they're going. We got to go to Red Lobster, so I just go along with whatever they want to do.
You've got Mayport fresh.
I know.
Shrimp
I know.
at your disposal, less than an hour away, and you're at Red Lobster.
I hear you. Woo! I know.
Must have been the cheddar biscuits. Did you get the cheddar biscuits, Pops? Oh.
Yeah, that's the reason he likes that restaurant. Oh, Gerald, my buddy. We got to go to Red Lobster to get some biscuits. So that's the reason we went. It wasn't because of the lobster.
Boys like those cheddar biscuits. Yeah. Yeah, they're tough. They're tough. They
are. And I had never even had one because I hadn't been to Red Lobster in 30 years.
Yeah. I had so many of them one time. This is when your daughter-in-law was pregnant with our oldest. I had so many one time that I couldn't sleep that night. Like
really?
I ate the garlic or whatever's in those things. Yeah. It kept me up all night. I couldn't put the fire. There was literally a fire.
If you eat one, you're gonna eat more.
Yeah. I mean, Pops, I drank water and I drank water and I drank water, and I still couldn't put that fire out from those cheddar biscuits.
They're good. I have to give them credit for that.
So you've got these issues now with Nana because you're out running with the boys too much, and we're not even into Thirsty Thursday season, which is coming up with the Jacksonville Jumbo.
That's right around the corner.
That might be the ender. That might end it right there.
I'm in trouble, but I got to keep working. Hey, it's a 24-hour day job.
Maybe just even some random grocery store roses. Just random, Pops. Just show up with some.
Oh Lord, the girl.
Yeah.
She's wearing me out.
You do take time pretty much every night though to watch the Judge Judy with her, don't you?
Oh,
that's what that's your show.
Every night,
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock. 7 o'clock. We like to see that there's other people in the world just as screwed up as we are. Yeah.
Would it be fair to say you may even have a crush on Judge Judy? Do you have a crush on Judge Judy, Pops?
No, I wouldn't go that far. But I do enjoy watching her. She is pretty rough on the people, though. Sometimes she's a little too rough.
No nonsensical, that Judge
not
Judy.
At all.
Yeah. Do you have any interest in the Super Bowl Sunday, Pops? And if so, who will you be pulling for? Who's your rooting interest?
I've been wondering ever since I found out a couple weeks ago who was going to be in it. I like both of them. I'd like to see Andy Reid win, just to get that Super Bowl victory. I like Andy Reid, I always have. But I also like San Francisco. But I guess you could say I'm pulling for Kansas City just because of Andy Reid.
You'd like to see Andy Reid get over the hump.
Yeah.
Kyle Shanahan, you think, will be back.
There you
guy.
go. There you go. And Garoppolo's a young man. Of course, Mahomes, you don't get no younger than Mahomes. But I'm a softie for Andy Reid.
Do you have any optimism as it relates to our Jaguars moving forward?
No, not at all. But I still enjoy the Jaguars, and I'm all in with the Jaguars, and I got my fingers and everything else crossed. Hopefully we can get something done next year.
And you like Gardner Minshew. Gardner Minshew kind of is a Pop's doppelganger. As a young man, if you want to know what Pops looked like at about 24, 25, just look at Gardner Minshew. That's him.
Did you see where he's going across country in his RV now?
Yeah. Let me ask you this, Pops. If you knew Tua Tagovailoa was going to be good to go with that hip, and kind of his previous self from a health standpoint, who do you take, Gardner Minshew or Tua Tagovailoa, Pops? If I offer them both.
Tua.
Yeah.
I mean, I like Gardner Minshew, and I'm glad he's here. But I'd take Tua in a split second if he is available.
Will you attend a Super Bowl party Sunday, or will it just be kind of low key?
I don't think so. When you go to those parties, you don't get to see nothing, Yeah. Everybody's got an opinion and a this and a that, and so I just would rather hang out at the house with a couple of couples, not a party of couples.
You and Chloe.
Yeah, Chloe and I is plenty. That's all I need.
You've got a 55th year class reunion coming up, I'm told, but you're not going to be able to make it, from what I understand, because you got to go to Hawaii.
I got grandchildren all over the country graduating from high school and college, and we want to make it to those, and that's the same month that the reunion is. So I'm not going to be able to make it.
We're going to be sharing lodging with Pops out in Hawaii in May. So we may just do a show with Pops every day from Hawaii while we're out there. All right, Pops. Well, have a good weekend. You getting egg salad for lunch? What you getting?
Actually, I got roast beef from the deli.
Boar's head, probably. Yeah.
Boar's head from the deli, and I mean,
now
it's good.
Just white bread, mayonnaise.
White bread, mayonnaise, mustard, pickle, and a nice fresh piece of lettuce and pepper.
And pepper. Yeah. Now you'll have those hamburger dill pickles on there?
Oh, yeah. I'll have about 3 of those on there.
3, exactly. All right. Well, enjoy that sandwich, Pops, and enjoy your weekend.
All right, man. We'll talk to y'all later.
The Boogeyman, Pops, as we get out of here on a Friday edition of Southern Fried Sports. It's been a lot of fun out here at the Tony Soprano's table. I think we're going to head next door for our little lunch now. It's starting to fill up, but plenty of space for you at Southern Ale House, 1530 McFarland Boulevard North in the Indian Hills section of Tuscaloosa. Thanks to Josh Smith for producing the show. Thanks to Hank South. Thanks to Pops. Until 11 a.m. on Monday. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Where I am,